Hi everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of Tai Chi today and my own journey in Tai Chi. So there are many different choices in terms of exercises. When I first started, I had no idea what Tai Chi was. In fact, the reason why I came along, or I didn't even come to a class, I just happened to walk past the place one day and people were doing their movements. But this is back in the late 70s, 1978 or something like that. Anyway, at that time, I was going to the gym in the morning, doing some boxing training and different sort of workouts. My friend, who was the Australian junior welterweight boxing champion at that time, was training with me, and we would train. We were living in Wollongong at that time, so I was training there. And after the workout, I'd go home. Usually, I'd catch a bus or something, and there was a hall nearby that I'd walk past. And one day, I saw these people doing these slow motion movements. At that time, I should mention I had a few injuries. I'd hurt myself mainly playing rugby league. I used to play rugby quite a bit, and I injured my neck, did some damage to my neck, and that was causing me a lot of pain. And I don't know why I was still doing other hard training, but that was all that was available. And I thought that might help me recover. But the pain was just getting worse and worse, where I couldn't really sleep properly. I couldn't read anything without sort of having, I just couldn't. My eyes were struggling even to read something on a page. I'd seen doctors, some chiropractors, and everyone just said, look, you probably need an operation. And that kind of gave me a jolt. I was about 17 at that time, so I thought it's way too early to have that kind of thing, that sort of intervention on my body. So when I walked past this place where they were doing the Tai Chi, I didn't know what it was. I just stood at the door and I was kind of laughing, thinking, what is this? And the instructor was standing, who was taking the class, sort of looked my way and said, oh, would you like to join us? And I thought, who me? And then he said, I need a partner. I said, yeah, what are you doing? He said, oh, this is called Tai Chi. And I do remember vaguely hearing about it or reading about it, sorry, in a magazine somewhere. And I thought, okay, maybe this will be interesting. I'll find out a little more about what it is. Anyway, I participated in the class. I thought it was pretty funny. And I was really hoping that nobody that I knew, any of my friends, walked past the hall, because I felt slightly embarrassed at doing this really slow motion stuff with the majority of people there were pretty old. Anyway, that was my first experience. And what I noticed was at the very end of the class, I felt relaxed. And I don't think I ever felt relaxed before, not like that. And then I just said to myself, well, this is good. I'll go to the gym in the morning. Afterwards, I'll do this on the way home and make that a regular weekend routine. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my Tai Chi journey, which was now, I think it's pretty close to 50 years ago. Could it be that long? Oh, no, about 40, 45, 46 years ago. So it's a long time. And it helped immensely. It got rid of a lot of the pain. Well, at least it made me relax, which was really important. So I kept doing it, and eventually I started to, study it more seriously and began to help out in classes and instruct. And I met some other very good teachers over the years who helped me develop further, especially my teacher, who I'm still training with, Fei Wong. He really explained a lot more about how to use these movements, exercises, and different things associated with Tai Chi to improve my health and well-being. And I don't have any problems with my neck anymore. I don't think I have any problems, touch wood, anywhere that I'm aware of in my body. Over the years, of course, I have, you encounter some things where you practice a little harder and it may cause some problems, but I've resolved all of those throughout my practice. So I feel really good. At 65 years of age, I'm feeling very healthy. So many people ask, why should I do Tai Chi? So The main reason that people come to learn Tai Chi is for relaxation, for a sense of well-being, calmness of mind, and general health, dealing with general health issues. Many people choose Tai Chi because it's gentle, but in fact, I mean, it is gentle in many, many ways, but it's very thorough in the way it trains the body. So the emphasis is not just on your muscles and building strength. You can do that, but really it's what's underneath the muscles, what is the root of the muscle, like the tendons and connective tissue, that's important. And Tai Chi addresses these areas. So it does that in a number of ways. First, the relaxation component, of course, adjusts your nervous system, but it also helps you to go beyond the muscular level of strength training or using muscles all the time, relying on muscles, to the joints and connective tissue. And that's really where a lot of the benefits come from. So that slow training that you see people doing in Tai Chi is kind of confusing, especially when you think, is this an exercise or really what is that? Is it a dance? It's not. It is exercise, but it's a different way of using the body, of training the body. So, like for me and many people when they're young, we were obsessed with muscular strength and going to the gym and working out that way, and high levels of physical fitness, they were also important. So when you do something like Tai Chi, you think, how is this relevant? How is this going to address my health issues or whatever? So this is the kind of a different way of thinking. So I'll try my best to make that clear as I'm talking here, explaining it. So the relaxation part allows you, first of all, to become more aware of your body. So if you're like I was, trained and very muscle bound, it was very hard for me to feel anything much in my body. I don't, accept extreme pain. Apart from that, it was just like this block of wood. So when I started learning Tai Chi, I did notice that was happening to me in terms of my awareness of my body. And I read somewhere where someone was explaining about using weights and then putting a feather on the body and not being able to discern that feather because of the tension in the body. And that made a lot of sense to me. I thought, that really is sort of like the difference in doing something like Tai Chi. You're not making the body numb. You're actually making the body more alive by relaxing it and opening it. So all of the training in the beginning, all the warm-ups, this is what we do every class. There's a whole series of warm-ups that target different areas. So for example, just to illustrate this, the shoulders are one of the first things we tend to work on, and on a kind of a physical level without using tension. So you're moving, your body, but you're also activating the shoulder area. So this is one of many exercises, and we do a series of those, which help to start to make you more aware of the shoulder tension. So when most people start doing this, it's very common to see this, right? I don't know if you can see what I'm doing exactly, but my shoulders are lifted up. Or even if they do them individually, it seems to be more like a shoulder and arm kind of movement. So you need to tell people, no, don't do that. Try it this way. Just let the body move gently and then start to feel movement through the shoulder. Very minimal amount of movement at first, just so you're not tensing up muscles. So you go through this process with the exercises, and there are a whole heap of them, different ones working on the shoulders and the arms, especially, things like this windmill type rotation are very good for opening up shoulders. So what I found when I first started, once my shoulders were loosened up, relatively deeply through the practice, my neck started to free up. I didn't have the pain. It wasn't tense around here anymore. So I became aware that training the shoulders actually affected my neck. This is just my experience, and I'm sure people who study anatomy and physiology will tell you straight away that's the case. But when I experienced that, to me it was a revelation, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. So I noticed that as teaching all these years, that many people who come in with some neck issues, tension around the neck, or headaches due to tension, just doing simple movements with the arms to loosen the shoulder really helps. But you've got to also understand that when you do that, you're not doing it with muscular force. Like I mentioned a moment ago, you're doing shoulders. You're using momentum of the arm, the heaviness of the arm to generate momentum, and that carries the arm around. So you're not lifting. Can you see the difference? This is kind of like, how people kind of lift the arm, and that creates it's more tension again. You're moving, but you're actually not opening. So relaxation helps you to, doing it a certain way helps you to open as well as get greater mobility within the joint. So over time, things change. So in the beginning, you might hear a lot of cracking, grinding because of injuries in the shoulder or build-up of calcification, which happens quite naturally when joints aren't moved and lubricated properly. So if you keep doing this type of movement, you tend to break down that build-up of calcification, and it tends to flow, dissolve into the bloodstream. So you're doing these things over many months, and you notice, gee, I don't have any noise anymore. I don't have any sound associated with my shoulder moving, and my shoulder becomes freer and freer. So these are all benefits from just understanding this process. When you feel it, it's like you feel better, you feel freer. And that's a different feeling to perhaps going and working out very hard physically, and you might feel pumped up and kind of energized in different ways, but your body's kind of carrying the tension all the time, this upper body tension. So a big part of training is on relaxing the upper body and lowering the chi. So this is a little bit more about the traditional way of explaining this process. So the image that we use quite often is that of a tree, which is exactly what I just said. So the roots are in the ground. This is the trunk, and then you've got the rest of the tree, the branches and the leaves up here. So you naturally will have a solidness, strength in the lower body, not tension. When we say lower, it's just more like a heaviness in the body, which is just a result of training over time. And then, of course, the muscles will engage, so the muscles will naturally get stronger, but without locking up muscles. So it's just a natural strength. And then that process helps change the body in many, many ways. So then your body starts to look more like a tree instead of like a bowling pin turned upside down, or as my teacher used to say, a mushroom body. So your body is top heavy, which is very typical of most people. So learning this, going through this process with Tai Chi helps to change the body quite deeply. The relaxation component goes even further than that as time goes on. It's not just about, of course, moving the right way, that's one thing, but also how does your nervous system work? How does your nervous system, when it's in an excited state, of course, everything inside is reacting to that, is stimulated by that. It's just like fight and flight. So when people are very agitated and angry and upset, their whole body is in that kind of readiness state to do something explosive or fast. And when you're relaxing, it's the opposite of that. The body starts to calm down, the muscles start to relax, the digestive system kicks in, so there's more activity in the lower body, in the abdominal region for digestion and processing anything down here. Then you'll find the breathing changes, so there's breathing that goes from the upper part of the chest right down to the lower abdomen. So you notice that the breath changes, not by me saying, oh, I must breathe down here, which may happen occasionally in a class where someone needs to be aware that they should feel that this part moving instead of just this part. So instead of breathing in the chest using the intercostal region, you breathe down here using the diaphragm. So there's an expansion, contraction, but not forcefully, okay? Once you learn that, once you understand this, it's part of the process. You've relaxed, your mind's calm, your nervous system is adjusted, and therefore your breathing changes. So it goes from up here, starts to sink down here, and it becomes very much lower abdomen, abdominal breathing. So this has its own benefits associated with it, and it also helps, lower the center of gravity. then there's a change in the heart rate. So you'll notice some people will feel it, that their heart's not pumping so hard or so forcefully. They feel, oh, let's calm down a bit. Blood pressure drops. So some people will feel they've really got issues around blood pressure. You may notice it. You may start feeling slightly dizzy, not overly dizzy, but just the change in pressure. And that's a good sign, especially if you are someone who's got a lot of issues around that. So all of these things start to affect your body more deeply. And this also gives Tai Chi the name called Nei Jia, mean internal family or internal work. So it's working inside the body as well as outside the body in a deliberate way, in a way that you can actually feel. So that's, internal. We usually say what you feel inside. So that's really important. So that happens over time. So as that happens, the mind calms down. So the mind, when it's busy, I mean, anyone who's studied meditation or any kind of relaxation training knows that as you get calmer, you seem to find that the mind gets more active. Now, this happens for different reasons. One, you're not aware of it normally because there's so much activity. It's like water being stirred, like muddy water. You stir the water and it's all muddy. You can't see the bottom. So you don't know any different. It's just, that's how life should be. That's how I think. So you're constantly in that state. But once you settle down, once the mud starts to settle and you have some clarity, you just notice, there are sediments here and there and this is happening and that's happening. And then the more you think about that or react to that, the more you stir it up. Over time, you start to get into a state where you're not looking or stirring the mind. And the calmer you go, the deeper that you go, it sort of settles further and further. So it's in these deeper states of mind that affect the nervous system. So the nervous system is not as reactive. And that puts a completely different feel in the body and also leads to sometimes insight. Maybe you read something or you hear something that you may have read before and it didn't make much sense. It might be about meditation or some sort of philosophy associated with the training, like here in Tai Chi, people are maybe aware of Lao Tzu or Chuanzi, any of those philosophers from ancient China were the Taoists. They were the Taoists who talk a lot about this process and this happening, where once you're calm and you're peaceful, you have more insight, more control in a way. You're not as reactive. You may find this in your own life, that especially after a session, you don't feel like you're not as angry at things if something doesn't go your way, or at least you're more you're just more aware that of the things that are happening and your reaction to them. So you might do something like hurt yourself, hit your hand, whereas before you may have screamed or yelled or done something else. Whereas now you might go, oh, that hurt. And then just sort of like calm down and that's it, done. So these things we kind of associate with a more insightful aspect of the mind. And that deepens and becomes kind of like a wisdom, a knowing of different things. And then if you look at this process more deeply, if you study anything like Chinese medicine, you may see the connection to how these things affect us in different ways, like emotions. There's like anger in the liver has a strong association. Things like fear and the kidneys, worry and the spleen and all of that. All of these things are kind of people have looked into over the centuries and found this relationship with the mind and the body and emotions. So training also is like, how do you calm yourself down to reduce waste? Let's say every time you overreact to something or have a huge outburst, a lot of energy is consumed. So when you're calming down and relaxing, you're conserving energy. So then this relates back to what is energy in this context, and the Chinese use the term qi. So qi is something that is naturally abiding in our body. However, we waste it through harmful activities. We use it, it's consumed through our everyday life. So we need to know especially if we're not well, and even just in general, we spend so much energy these days. We're always busy doing things, and that can have a negative effect on our energy. So we need to know, how do I restore that? Of course, we sleep. We must make sure our diet is good, but through Tai Chi, through the meditative techniques which we call Qigong, there are ways to restore the energy, to bring the energy back to a more plentiful state, and that's why we do these things. Over time, we feel the benefit. Yeah, I feel more energetic. I feel clear. I feel more. I can make better decisions. I can do my work more efficiently, more productively. All that is like, they're all huge benefits, and they also relate to this idea of not consuming energy unnecessarily or wastefully. So we call this like conservation of energy. You know, what people use that term these days for all sorts of things. So if you think about it, it's in terms of the philosophy, especially the ideas of yin and yang and wuxing, the 5 elements, and all of that, which are part of the ancient philosophies in China. They're telling us or pointing out that we should live in a more balanced way, with harmony, with things, rather than conflict. So even when we start Tai Chi, you often see this greeting is used, so the sun and the moon, and peace and harmony. So if we look at that and see how we live, if this was the greeting, it would be a different greeting. 2 fists knocking each other, that would be, 2 hammers coming together and sparks flying. So that would be not a very good way to live, not a very good way to conserve energy. You'd be constantly battling everything and everyone. So once you realize this, once you see that happening, this softer palm here represents something like a curtain, and this would be a hammer. So once there's contact, the hammer hitting the curtain, there's very little effect. Okay, it can absorb, can adjust. So it's telling us about being humble, about being more, looking at ourselves more. So you examine yourself in different ways. For example, you might see, yeah, I'm adding fuel to these problems by maybe being very reactive or being very stubborn. There's many reasons, and you may see, through your practice especially, you start to come to realize that, this is not so good for my health. It's not so good for the relationships I'm having around me. So I need to kind of step back. It doesn't mean like, maybe people think of this as retreat or giving up. It's not giving up at all. It's like seeing a bigger picture, okay? So you just become more clear about it. Like in the long run, if you've got more harmony, more balance and whatever, just because you're not going to engage in arguing and fighting with people, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It means, in a way, you've found some inner contentment, so you're not reliant upon what's going on outside all the time, what other people's opinions are of you. All of those things aren't bothering you as much. So it doesn't mean you completely get rid of it. That would be a very high state. But in general life, you're feeling like you're finding this balance, you can live better. So these are important things. This is all to do with Tai Chi. So when you look at Tai Chi movements, so instead of like a muscle-bound thing, which is very linear and sort of mechanical, Tai Chi is very flowing. So the forms kind of like make the body move very softly and gently and continuously. So it's like water. They always use that example. So when water flows, everything, it's like moving. There's if there are any resistance anywhere, finds a way around it, over it, under it, through it, if it has to. So eventually all of those blockages start to go. And that's the same with movement in Tai Chi, that you're trying to get rid of blockages. So blockages in the body, they can be physical, they can be emotional, mental. They're things that are some sort of rigidity that we have. So for example, a trauma that somebody may experience in their life, wherever it is, can be held within the body. So some people just have to hear something that is related to that trauma and they get really, they feel uncomfortable. They may, all sorts of things may happen. and it just triggers a whole lot of feelings and brings back all these memories, uncomfortable memories. So those things are also held in the body. So when people are working with their training through the body and releasing all that tension, all that built up stuff, it seems to lessen the effect of those things. And if it can bring insight and some sort of understanding, it's a huge change in the person. So this then, when the blockages are starting to break down more and be removed, the body has more fluidity, softness, it moves more smoothly, it feels more balanced, it feels stronger. The whole body's working together, so we say that, you know, it's not just one part, it's the whole body that we use. So all of these things are beneficial. They're just much more beneficial, and aches and pains leave. In Chinese medicine, it's very simple the way they explain this. They say that when you're healthy, the qi, the energy, blood and qi, flow freely through your body. So your body's nourished by that. So there's no kinks. It's like the hose. There's no kinks in the hose. The water, the pressure goes through nice and smoothly. And that's a good example of what we're looking for in terms of health. Ill health would be there are blockages everywhere, and there's stagnation in the body. There's excesses and deficiencies. So training is meant to make the body change so that it becomes a very good conduit for that energy. There's no resistance anymore. And that seems to be what it's about. And once the energy gets stronger, so we always talk about this in terms of energy, because it's like the basic building block according to these practices. So if that energy is strong and you've eliminated a lot of those blockages, all of the issues around those things, physical, mental, emotional, start to clear up. Almost like, wow, it's like you're so much stronger and healthier that those things don't have the same impact. And you do also gain a lot more insight with any of those things. So that helps your life immensely, I can only say from my experience. It just changes you fundamentally. And just you feel happier, you feel much more content with your life and with the people around you, and you don't sort of hang on to things as much. So these are all associated with Tai Chi practice and things you often hear, like I said, flow like water. Yes, there's strength. There's definite strength in the whole body as a result of the training. So it's not a weak thing. It is a martial art at another level. So first, people come for health. So that's the main thing. But once the health is built up, the body gets stronger, and the energy becomes more, is full. You're full of energy. So that energy, you're able to apply it in different things. And some people who are more interested in the going further in the martial, exploring that, it's not really about fighting, but it's just about how do you use your body more efficiently under pressure. You can explore that. You've got the tools to do that. So your foundation is really good. So these are some of the things. So all I can say for me and from my experience is just amazing. It gives you so many benefits, and there are so many aspects to it. And the further you go, the more you see it. There's a very complete system. It looks like it definitely has absorbed so many good qualities from the traditional Chinese cultures. You know, the Chinese medicine, the meditation practices, the general health practices, the philosophy behind all of that, and even, like I said before, the martial aspects are there as well. So it's a very complete system and can help you in many, many ways. So if you're thinking about Tai Chi, definitely go and give it a try. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Thanks, everybody.